A millionaire saw a little girl taking a rotten pizza out of the garbage, followed her and cried at what he saw. The oppressive summer heat bore down on the bustling streets of New York City, the air thick with humidity and the acrid scent of hot asphalt. Amidst the cacophony of honking horns and the steady hum of pedestrian chatter, Alexander Thornton navigated the crowded sidewalk with practiced ease. His tailored suit and polished shoes marked him as a man of means, a stark contrast to the gritty urban landscape surrounding him. At 52, Alexander had long since become accustomed to the trappings of wealth. As the CEO of Thornton Industries, a multinational technology conglomerate, he'd amassed a fortune that placed him squarely among the upper echelons of society. Yet despite his success, a gnawing emptiness had taken root in his chest, a void that neither money nor accolades seemed capable of filling. Lost in thought, Alexander almost missed the small figure huddled in the shadows of a nearby alley. It was only a flash of movement that caught his eye, drawing his attention to the young girl crouched beside an overflowing dumpster. She couldn't have been more than 12 or 13, her slight frame swallowed by an oversized, threadbare sweater despite the sweltering heat. Alexander's steps faltered as he watched the girl reach into the dumpster, her thin arms disappearing up to the elbows as she rummaged through the refuse. After a moment, she withdrew her hands, clutching a half-eaten pizza slice wrapped in a grimy napkin. Without hesitation, she brought the morsel to her lips, taking a large bite with the desperation of one who hadn't eaten in days. The sight struck Alexander like a physical blow. In all his years in the city, he'd grown adept at averting his gaze from the less fortunate, rationalizing his inaction with donations to various charities. But something about this girl, perhaps the determined set of her jaw or the quiet dignity with which she carried herself, refused to let him look away. Before he could second-guess himself, Alexander approached the alley. "Excuse me," he called out softly, not wanting to startle the girl. She whirled around, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and defiance. Up close, Alexander could see the smudges of dirt on her face and the tangled mess of her dark hair. But it was her eyes that captivated him, a startling shade of green that seemed to hold a wisdom far beyond her years. "I'm not doing anything wrong," the girl said, her voice hoarse but steady. "This is trash. Nobody wants it." Alexander held up his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he assured her. I wondered if you might like something a bit fresher to eat." Suspicion flickered across the girl's face, but hunger won out over caution. She gave a small nod, watching Alexander warily as he gestured towards a nearby deli. "My name's Alexander," he said as they walked. "What's yours?" There was a pause before she answered. Lily Martinez." Inside the deli, Alexander watched as Lily devoured a turkey sandwich and a large bowl of soup, her initial hesitation giving way to ravenous hunger. As she ate, he gently probed for more information, his heart growing heavier with each revelation. Lily, he learned, was 13 years old. She lived with her younger brother, Miguel, and their ailing mother in a rundown apartment building on the outskirts of the city. Their father had abandoned the family years ago, leaving them to scrape by on their mother's meager disability checks. "Miguel's smart," Lily said, a note of pride creeping into her voice. "He should be in one of those fancy schools for gifted kids. But—" She trailed off, her gaze dropping to the tabletop. "But what?" Alexander prompted gently. Lily sighed. "He's sick. Some kind of autoimmune thing the doctors can't figure out. Mom does her best, but between her bad back and Miguel's medical bills—" She shrugged, the gesture far too world-weary for a child her age. As Lily spoke, Alexander felt something shift within him. The gnawing emptiness that had plagued him for so long began to fill with a sense of purpose. Here, he realized, was an opportunity to make a real difference. Not through impersonal charitable donations, but through direct, meaningful action. "Lily," he said, once she had finished eating, "I'd like to help you and your family, if you'll let me." The girl's green eyes narrowed, suspicion returning full force. "Why?" she demanded. "What's in it for you?" Alexander considered her question carefully. "Honestly, I'm not entirely sure," he admitted, "but I have the means to help and I'd like to try. Would you be willing to introduce me to your mother?" Lily studied him for a long moment, her gaze so intense that Alexander found himself resisting the urge to squirm. Finally, she nodded. "Okay," she said, "but if you try anything funny, I'll sick our neighbor's Rottweiler on you." Despite the gravity of the situation, Alexander couldn't help but chuckle. "Duly noted," he said, rising from his seat. "Shall we?" As they left the deli and made their way towards Lily's home, Alexander felt a spark of excitement ignite within him. He had no idea where this impromptu act of kindness might lead, but for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. Little did he know that this chance encounter would set in motion a chain of events that would not only transform Lily's life but his own as well, in ways he could never have imagined. The Martinez family's apartment building loomed before them, a dilapidated structure that seemed to sag under the weight of years of neglect. Graffiti adorned the crumbling brick walls, and several windows were boarded up with plywood. As Alexander followed Lily up the creaking stairs to the third floor, he couldn't help but marvel at the resilience of those who called this place home. Lily paused outside a battered door marked with the number 3C. She shot Alexander a warning look before turning the knob and calling out, "Mama, I'm home and I brought someone with me." I brought. The apartment was small and sparsely furnished, but scrupulously clean. The scent of lemon cleaner hung in the air, barely masking the underlying mustiness. A worn couch dominated the tiny living room, where a boy of about 10 lay curled beneath a threadbare blanket, his face pale and drawn. A woman emerged from what Alexander assumed was the kitchen, wiping her hands on a faded apron. Despite the lines of worry etched into her face, Maria Martinez possessed the same striking green eyes as her daughter. Those eyes now widened in surprise, and no small amount of apprehension at the sight of the well-dressed stranger in her home. "Mama," Lily said quickly, "this is Mr. Alexander. He wanted to help." Maria's gaze darted between her daughter and Alexander, confusion evident in her expression. "Help," she repeated, her accent thick. "I don't understand." Alexander stepped forward, offering his hand. "Mrs. Martinez, my name is Alexander Thornton. I had the pleasure of meeting your daughter today, and she told me a bit about your family's situation. I was hoping we might be able to talk." Maria hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Please sit," she said, gesturing to the couch. "Miguel, mijo, can you move over for the gentleman?" The boy on the couch stirred, blinking up at Alexander with curiosity. As he struggled to sit up, Alexander was struck by how fragile he looked, his skin nearly translucent and dark circles shadowing his eyes. "No, please," Alexander said quickly. "Don't trouble yourself, Miguel. I'm fine standing." As Maria settled into a rickety chair across from the couch, Lily perched on the armrest beside her brother, her posture protective. Alexander could feel the weight of their collective gaze upon him and took a deep breath, suddenly unsure of how to proceed. "Mrs. Martinez," he began, "I want to be clear that I'm not here to cause any trouble or to make you uncomfortable. I'm the CEO of a company called Thornton Industries, and I've been fortunate enough to achieve a level of financial success that allows me to help others. When I met Lily today and heard about your family's struggles, I felt compelled to offer my assistance." Maria's brow furrowed. "Assistance?" she repeated. "What kind of assistance?" Alexander glanced at Miguel, noting the way the boy's chest rose and fell with each labored breath. "For starters," he said, "I'd like to arrange for Miguel to see some specialists. Top-notch doctors who might be able to get to the bottom of his condition." Miguel's eyes widened, a flicker of hope crossing his face before he quickly schooled his features into a mask of indifference. Lily, however, leaned forward eagerly. "Really?" she asked. "You could do that?" "Lily," Maria admonished gently before turning back to Alexander. "Mr. Thornton, that's very kind, but we couldn't possibly accept such generosity from a stranger." "I understand your hesitation," Alexander said, "but please allow me to explain my proposition fully. In addition to medical care for Miguel, I'd like to offer educational opportunities for both of your children, private tutors if necessary, to help them catch up on any schooling they've missed. And," he paused, knowing his next offer might be met with resistance, "I'd like to help you find a new place to live, somewhere safe and comfortable, where you won't have to worry about making rent." A heavy silence fell over the room. Maria's hands twisted in her lap, her expression a complex mix of hope, disbelief, and wary suspicion. "Why?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this for us?" Alexander considered her question carefully. "To be honest, Mrs. Martinez, I'm not entirely sure myself. I've spent most of my life focused on building my company, on accumulating wealth and success. But lately, I've been feeling empty. When I saw Lily today, something just clicked. I realized that I have the power to make a real difference in people's lives, and I want to use that power for good." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the family before him. Maria, with her proud bearing despite the weight of her struggles. Miguel, trying so hard to appear strong even as illness ravaged his young body. And Lily, her green eyes blazing with a mixture of hope and fierce protectiveness. "I'm not asking for anything in return," Alexander continued. "I don't want publicity or recognition. I just want to help if you'll let me." Maria was quiet for a long moment, her gaze locked on Alexander, as if trying to peer into his very soul. Finally she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "Mr. Thornton, your offer it's more than we could ever have dreamed of. But I have to ask, are you sure this is a big commitment you're making to people you've just met?" Alexander smiled, feeling more certain of his decision with each passing moment. "I'm sure, Mrs. Martinez. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and I think meeting Lily today was meant to set me on this path." Lily, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the exchange, suddenly piped up. "Does this mean Miguel can see a doctor who'll make him better?" The naked hope in her voice tugged at Alexander's heartstrings. "That's exactly what it means," he assured her. "We'll find the best doctors and make sure Miguel gets whatever treatment he needs." Miguel, who had been listening intently, spoke up for the first time. "And school?" he asked hesitantly. "I've always wanted to learn more about science and math, but—" He trailed off, gesturing vaguely at his frail body. "Absolutely," Alexander nodded. "We'll get you the best tutors and all the books you could ever want. Sky's the limit, kiddo." A tiny smile tugged at the corners of Miguel's mouth. The first real sign of happiness Alexander had seen from the boy. It was a small victory, but it filled him with a sense of warmth and purpose. Maria took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders as she came to a decision. "Mr. Thornton, Alexander, we accept your generous offer. I don't know how we can ever repay you, but please know that our gratitude is boundless." Alexander felt a weight lift from his shoulders, replaced by a surge of excitement and determination. "There's no need for repayment, Mrs. Martinez. Your family's health and success will be all the reward I need." As they began to discuss the logistics of his assistance, finding new doctors for Miguel, arranging for tutors, and searching for a suitable new home, Alexander felt a sense of rightness settle over him. He knew there would be challenges ahead, that helping the Martinez family wouldn't always be smooth sailing. But for the first time in years, he felt truly alive, invigorated by the prospect of making a tangible difference in the world. Little did Alexander know that his impulsive act of kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would not only transform the lives of the Martinez family, but would also lead him on a journey of personal growth and redemption that he could never have anticipated. As the sun began to set outside the small apartment, casting a warm glow through the grimy windows, Alexander Thornton made a silent vow. He would see this through, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. The Martinez family had awoken something in him, a long-dormant sense of purpose and connection, and he was determined to nurture that feeling, wherever it might lead. The months that followed Alexander's fateful encounter with the Martinez family were a whirlwind of activity. True to his word, he spared no expense in ensuring that Miguel received the best possible medical care. A team of specialists was assembled, each expert in their field, working tirelessly to unravel the mystery of the young boy's condition. It was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a brilliant immunologist with a reputation for tackling the most perplexing cases, who finally made the breakthrough. After weeks of tests and consultations, she identified a rare autoimmune disorder that had eluded previous diagnoses. With this knowledge came hope, a targeted treatment plan that, while not a cure, promised to dramatically improve Miguel's quality of life. The change in Miguel was nothing short of miraculous. As the new medications began to take effect, color returned to his cheeks, and his energy levels slowly but steadily increased. For the first time in years, he was able to leave his sickbed for more than a few hours at a time. Lily watched her brother's transformation with a mixture of joy and something akin to wistfulness. She was thrilled to see Miguel improving, of course, but a small part of her couldn't help but feel overshadowed. For so long, she had been the family's rock, the one who scavenged for food and tried to keep their spirits up. Now, with Alexander's help and Miguel's improving health, she found herself unsure of her place. It was Maria who first noticed Lily's uncharacteristic quietness. One evening, as they sat in their new apartment, a spacious, sun-filled space that still felt unreal after years of struggle, she gently broached the subject. "Mija," Maria said, sitting beside Lily on the plush sofa that still smelled of newness. "What's troubling you? You've been so quiet lately." Lily shrugged, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. "It's nothing, Mama, I'm fine." Maria placed a hand on her daughter's cheek, gently turning Lily's face towards her. "Lily Martinez, I've known you since the day you were born. Fine does not make you avoid your brother's eyes or hide in your room for hours. Talk to me, mi amor." Lily's lower lip trembled and suddenly the words came pouring out. "I'm happy for Miguel, I really am, but I don't know what to do now. Before I had to be strong for everyone. I had to find food and help take care of the house and make sure Miguel was okay. Now with all this," she gestured around the apartment, "I feel useless." Maria pulled her daughter into a tight embrace, stroking her hair as Lily's shoulders shook with quiet sobs. "Oh, my brave girl," she murmured, "you have carried so much for so long, but you are not useless. You are smart and kind and so very strong. This is your chance to just be a child, to learn and grow without the weight of the world on your shoulders." As Lily's tears subsided, Maria gently wiped her cheeks. "Why don't we talk to Mr. Thornton? Perhaps he can help you find some activities or classes that interest you. You've always been curious about how things work. Maybe there's a science program you'd enjoy." Lily sniffled, considering her mother's words. "Maybe," she said hesitantly. I did like helping the doctors understand Miguel's symptoms. Do you think I could learn more about that kind of stuff?" Maria smiled, a spark of pride in her eyes. "I think you can do anything you set your mind to, Mija. We'll talk to Mr. Thornton tomorrow." True to her word, Maria reached out to Alexander the next day. He listened intently as she explained Lily's struggles, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I think I might have an idea," he said finally. "There's a summer program at the university for high school students interested in medicine. It's usually for older teens, but given Lily's unique experiences, I bet we could make a case for her to attend. Would that be something she'd be interested in?" When presented with the opportunity, Lily's eyes lit up with an enthusiasm that had been missing for weeks. "Really?" she breathed. "I could learn about real medicine." Alexander grinned, relieved to see a spark of the fierce, determined girl he'd first met in that alley. "Really," he confirmed. "It'll be challenging, but I have a feeling you're up for it." As summer approached, Lily threw herself into preparation for the program. She devoured medical textbooks, watched countless documentaries, and peppered Miguel's doctors with questions whenever they visited. Her passion was infectious, and soon Miguel was joining her study sessions, his own interest in science reignited by his sister's enthusiasm. The program proved to be transformative for Lily. Surrounded by like-minded peers and mentored by passionate professors, she flourished. Her unique perspective, shaped by years of navigating the healthcare system for her brother, brought a depth to her contributions that impressed even the most seasoned instructors. One afternoon, near the end of the program, Lily cornered Alexander as he arrived for one of his regular visits. Her eyes were shining with excitement, and she could barely contain herself as she blurted out, "I know what I want to do with my life." Alexander raised an eyebrow, an amused smile playing at his lips. "Oh? And what's that?" "I want to be a doctor," Lily declared, her voice filled with certainty. "But not just any doctor. I want to help kids like Miguel, kids with weird diseases that nobody understands. I want to solve medical mysteries and make sick people better." The conviction in her voice stirred something in Alexander's chest, a mixture of pride, hope, and a touch of bittersweet nostalgia for his own long-forgotten childhood dreams. "That's a big goal," he said softly. "But if anyone can do it, Lily Martinez, I believe it's you." As Alexander watched Lily race off to share her epiphany with her family, he felt a sense of purpose solidify within him. He had set out to help one family, but he was beginning to realize that the ripple effects of his actions could reach much further. An idea began to take shape in his mind, a way to expand his philanthropy, to create opportunities for other children like Lily and Miguel. That night, long after the Martinez family had gone to bed, Alexander sat in his home office, poring over financial reports and legal documents. By the time the first rays of sunlight began to peek through his window, the framework for the Thornton Foundation was laid out before him, a non-profit organization dedicated to providing medical care, education, and support to underprivileged children with rare or complex medical conditions. As he leaned back in his chair, exhausted but exhilarated, Alexander realized that the gnawing emptiness that had plagued him for so long was gone. In its place was a sense of purpose, a drive to make a lasting difference in the world. And it had all started with a chance encounter in a New York City alley. Little did Alexander know that the seeds of change he had planted would continue to grow and flourish in ways he could never have imagined, setting the stage for a series of events that would come full circle in the most unexpected of ways. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. The Thornton Foundation, born from Alexander's impulsive act of kindness, had grown into a powerhouse of philanthropy, touching the lives of thousands of children across the country. But for Alexander, no success story was quite as sweet as that of the Martinez siblings. Lily, now 23, had exceeded even Alexander's loftiest expectations. She had graduated summa cum laude from a prestigious university, earning early acceptance into one of the nation's top medical schools. Her passion for solving medical mysteries had only grown stronger over the years, fueled by a combination of brilliant intellect and deep empathy born from her own experiences. Miguel, at 20, was no less impressive. The sickly boy who had once spent his days confined to a couch had blossomed into a tall, athletic young man with a sharp mind and an even sharper wit. While his sister had chosen to battle illness through medicine, Miguel had found his calling in the law. He was in his second year at law school, determined to become an advocate for families navigating the complex intersections of healthcare and legal rights. As for Maria, she had flourished in ways that still brought tears to Alexander's eyes when he thought about it. With her children's futures secure and her own health improved thanks to proper medical care, she had thrown herself into education. She'd earned her GED and then, to everyone's delight, enrolled in community college courses. Now she worked as a patient advocate at the same hospital where Miguel had received his life-changing treatment, her warmth and hard-won wisdom a balm to families facing their darkest hours. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Alexander received the call that would set in motion the next chapter of their intertwined stories. He was in his office at Thornton Industries, half listening to a conference call while his mind wandered to the upcoming board meeting for the foundation when his private line lit up. "Mr. Thornton," Lily's voice came through the speaker, a mix of excitement and nervousness that immediately captured Alexander's full attention. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Lily, my dear, you know you're never an interruption," Alexander said warmly, waving off his assistant who had appeared in the doorway with a concerned expression. "What can I do for you?" There was a pause, and Alexander could almost see Lily gathering her courage. "I have a proposition for you," she said finally. It's pretty big. Do you think we could meet maybe this weekend?" Intrigued, Alexander agreed, and they set a time for Lily to come to his home that Saturday afternoon. As he hung up the phone, he found himself both curious and slightly apprehensive. Lily had grown into a force of nature, brilliant and determined. Whatever she had in mind, Alexander had no doubt it would be ambitious. Saturday arrived, and with it came Lily, her green eyes sparkling with barely contained excitement as Alexander ushered her into his study. She had grown into a striking young woman, her once gangly frame now possessed of a graceful confidence that spoke of her hard-won successes. "All right, Lily," Alexander said as they settled into the comfortable leather chairs by the fireplace. "I'm all ears. What's this big proposition of yours?" Lily took a deep breath, then launched into a presentation that left Alexander slack-jawed with admiration. She had identified a gap in the medical landscape, a lack of specialized clinics dedicated to diagnosing and treating rare and complex disorders in underprivileged communities. Her proposal was to establish such a clinic, staffed by top specialists and equipped with cutting-edge technology, all offered at little to no cost to patients who couldn't afford traditional care. "The Thornton Foundation has done amazing work," Lily said, her voice passionate, "but I think we can do more. I want to create a place where kids like Miguel, kids who might otherwise fall through the cracks, can get the care they need. A place that combines research, treatment, and advocacy all under one roof." Alexander leaned back in his chair, his mind racing as he considered the scope of Lily's vision. It was ambitious, potentially revolutionary, and undoubtedly expensive. But as he looked at the determined young woman before him, he felt a swell of pride and excitement. "It's a beautiful dream, Lily," he said softly, "but the costs involved, we're talking millions, possibly tens of millions of dollars." Lily nodded, undaunted. "I know, that's why I came to you. The Thornton Foundation has the resources and the connections to make this happen, and I'm willing to put everything I have into it. My time, my skills, my future. I'll finish my residency, specialize in rare disorders, whatever it takes. I need your help to get it off the ground." Alexander studied Lily for a long moment, marveling at how far she had come from the scrappy girl he'd met in that alley. He thought of all the lives that could be changed by her vision, all the families who might be spared the struggles the Martinezes had endured. "All right," he said finally, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Let's do it." The next few years were a whirlwind of activity, while Lily completed her medical training, specializing in rare genetic disorders. Alexander threw the full weight of his influence and resources behind the project. Bureaucratic hurdles were cleared, funding was secured, and a team of world-class medical professionals was assembled. Miguel, not to be outdone by his sister, contributed his burgeoning legal expertise to the project. He worked tirelessly to navigate the complex regulatory landscape, ensuring that the clinic would be able to serve those most in need without running afoul of healthcare laws. Finally, 5 years after that fateful meeting in Alexander's study, the Martinez Thornton Clinic for Rare Disorders opened its doors. The state-of-the-art facility stood as a beacon of hope in a neighborhood that had once been as desperate as the one where Alexander had first encountered Lily. On the day of the grand opening, Alexander stood back and watched with misty eyes as Lily, resplendent in her white coat, cut the ribbon to thunderous applause. Miguel stood beside her, his law degree freshly framed and hanging in his office within the clinic's legal advocacy department. And there, in the front row, was Maria, tears of joy streaming down her face as she witnessed her children's dreams becoming reality. As the crowd began to file into the clinic for tours, Lily broke away and approached Alexander. Without a word, she threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "For everything. We wouldn't be here without you." Alexander returned the embrace, his heart full to bursting. "No, my dear," he said softly. "Thank you. You and your family, you've given my life meaning I never knew was missing." As they parted, both wiping away tears, neither could have imagined the twist of fate that lay ahead, a turn of events that would bring their journey full circle in the most unexpected of ways. The years rolled by, marked by triumphs and challenges, as the Martinez Thornton Clinic established itself as a leading institution in the treatment of rare disorders. Lily's reputation grew, her innovative approach to difficult cases drawing attention from the medical community worldwide. Miguel's legal advocacy work expanded, tackling systemic issues in healthcare access and patients' rights. Alexander, now in his early 70s, had gradually stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Thornton Industries, focusing instead on his philanthropic work. The Thornton Foundation had grown exponentially, its reach extending far beyond its original mission. Yet for all its success, Alexander still found the most joy in his regular visits to the clinic, watching Lily and Miguel work their magic. It was during one such visit, on a blustery autumn day much like the one when Lily had first approached him with her ambitious plan, that Alexander's world tilted on its axis. He had just finished sitting in on a board meeting, marveling as always at Lily's eloquence and passion as she presented the clinic's latest research findings. As the room cleared out, he lingered, intending to invite Lily and Miguel to dinner to celebrate another successful quarter. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness washed over him. The room spun, and Alexander felt his knees buckle. He was vaguely aware of Lily's alarmed cry, of strong arms catching him before he hit the ground. Then darkness claimed him. Alexander awoke to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the concerned faces of Lily and Miguel hovering over him. He was in a private room at the clinic, he realized, hooked up to various machines that blinked and whirred softly. "What happened?" he croaked, his throat dry and scratchy. Lily's professional demeanor wavered for a moment, concern etching deep lines around her eyes. "You collapsed, Alexander. We've run some preliminary tests, but—" She hesitated, exchanging a glance with Miguel. "But what?" Alexander prompted, a tendril of fear curling in his gut. Miguel stepped in, his voice gentle but firm. "The initial results are concerning. We're seeing some abnormalities that don't quite fit any standard diagnosis. Lily wants to run more specialized tests." Alexander closed his eyes, absorbing the weight of their words. After a moment, he looked up at Lily, managing a weak smile. "Well, my dear, it seems you have a new medical mystery on your hands." Lily's answering smile was watery, but determined. "And I intend to solve it," she declared. "I've already reached out to some colleagues, specialists in geriatric medicine and rare disorders. We're going to figure this out, Alexander. I promise." The next few weeks were a blur of tests, consultations, and hushed conversations. Alexander found himself on the other side of the healthcare experience, a patient in the very institution he had helped create. The irony was not lost on him, nor was the dedication of the staff, many of whom he had personally hired, as they worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery of his condition. It was Lily who made the breakthrough, poring over test results late one night when a pattern caught her eye. She burst into Alexander's room the next morning, her hair disheveled and dark circles under her eyes, but her face alight with cautious hope. "I think I've found it," she announced without preamble. "It's incredibly rare, a genetic disorder that typically manifests in childhood, but can in some cases remain dormant until later in life. The symptoms are vague and often mimic other conditions, which is why it's so frequently misdiagnosed." Alexander listened intently as Lily outlined her theory, explaining how this particular disorder could account for the constellation of symptoms he'd been experiencing. As she spoke, he felt a surge of pride so intense it nearly took his breath away. This brilliant, compassionate woman, the same girl he'd once watched fish a pizza crust from a dumpster, was now fighting to save his life with every ounce of knowledge and skill at her disposal. "So," he said when she had finished, "what's the prognosis? Can it be treated?" Lily's expression sobered. "It's not curable," she admitted, "but it is manageable. With the right combination of medications and therapies, we can significantly improve your quality of life and slow the progression of the disorder." She leaned forward, taking Alexander's hand in hers. "It won't be easy," she continued, her voice fierce with determination. "The treatment protocol is intense, and we'll need to monitor you closely. But Alexander, I swear to you, we will face this together. You gave me and my family a chance at a better life. Now it's my turn to fight for you." Tears welled in Alexander's eyes, and he squeezed Lily's hand tightly. "My dear," he said softly, "you've already given me more than I could have ever dreamed. Watching you and Miguel grow, seeing the lives you've touched through this clinic, that's a gift beyond measure." Miguel, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped into the room. "We're not going to let you go through this alone," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Whatever you need, legal support, financial management, or just someone to keep you company during treatments, we're here." As Alexander looked between the two siblings, he was struck by the realization that somewhere along the way, Lily and Miguel had become more than just beneficiaries of his philanthropy. They had become family. The months that followed were challenging, filled with grueling treatments and setbacks that tested Alexander's resolve. But true to their word, Lily and Miguel were there every step of the way. Lily oversaw his treatment personally, pushing the boundaries of medical science in her determination to improve his condition. Miguel handled the legal and financial aspects, ensuring that Alexander could focus all his energy on recovery. Even Maria pitched in, bringing home-cooked meals to the clinic and regaling Alexander with stories that never failed to lift his spirits. The entire staff of the Martinez Thornton Clinic rallied around him, their dedication a testament to the culture of compassion that Lily and Miguel had fostered. Slowly but surely, Alexander's condition began to stabilize. While he would never regain the robust health of his younger years, Lily's innovative treatment protocol allowed him to reclaim a quality of life he had feared was lost forever. As he sat in the clinic's garden one sunny afternoon, watching Lily explain a complex medical concept to a group of eager interns while Miguel led a support group for patients' families nearby, Alexander felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. His impulsive act of kindness all those years ago had set in motion a chain of events he could never have anticipated. It had given him a purpose, a family, and now in his twilight years it had given him a second chance at life. As if sensing his thoughts, Lily glanced over and caught his eye. She excused herself from the interns and made her way to his side, settling onto the bench next to him. "Penny, for your thoughts?" she asked, bumping his shoulder gently with her own. Alexander chuckled, shaking his head in wonder. "I was just thinking about how remarkable life can be, how a single moment, a single choice can change everything." Lily nodded, her gaze sweeping over the clinic grounds. "I think about that a lot too. If you hadn't stopped that day in the alley, if you hadn't been brave enough to trust a stranger," Alexander countered. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, each lost in their own reflections. Finally, Lily spoke again, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "You know, when I was younger, I used to think that fairy tales were just stories, happy endings that didn't exist in the real world." She turned to face Alexander, her green eyes shimmering with emotion. "But now I realize that sometimes life can be even more extraordinary than any fairy tale. We just have to be willing to see the magic in small acts of kindness, in the connections we make with others." Alexander felt his throat tighten with emotion. He reached out and took Lily's hand, marveling at how this brilliant doctor's hands were still somehow the same ones he'd watched pull a pizza crust from a dumpster all those years ago. "My dear," he said, his voice rough with feeling, "you and your family have brought more magic into my life than I ever thought possible. I set out to help you, but in the end, you've saved me in more ways than one." Lily squeezed his hand, a tear slipping down her cheek. "We saved each other," she corrected gently, "and we'll keep on saving others together." As they sat there, bathed in the warm afternoon sunlight, Alexander felt a sense of completeness he had never known before. The gnawing emptiness that had once driven him to approach a starving child in an alley had been filled to overflowing with purpose, love, and the knowledge that his legacy would live on through the lives touched by the Martinez Thornton Clinic. In that moment, surrounded by the fruits of a single act of compassion, Alexander Thornton knew with absolute certainty that he had found his happy ending, one far more beautiful and profound than any fairy tale could have imagined. As the years continued to pass, the Martinez Thornton Clinic flourished, its reputation growing far beyond the borders of New York City. What had begun as a single facility, dedicated to rare disorders, had blossomed into a network of clinics across the country, each one a beacon of hope for families struggling with complex medical conditions. Lily, now in her 40s, had become a leading figure in the field of rare disease research. Her innovative approaches and tireless dedication had led to breakthroughs that transformed the lives of countless patients. She split her time between treating patients, conducting research, and lecturing at medical schools, inspiring a new generation of doctors to approach medicine with both scientific rigor and deep compassion. Miguel, too, had made a name for himself. His legal advocacy work had resulted in landmark cases that reshaped healthcare policy, ensuring greater access and rights for patients with rare and chronic conditions. He had become a sought-after speaker and consultant, his unique perspective as both a lawyer and the sibling of a former rare disease patient lending weight to his arguments. Maria, though officially retired, remained a beloved figure at the clinic. She volunteered regularly, her warmth and hard-earned wisdom providing comfort to worried families, navigating the complexities of rare disease diagnoses. And Alexander, defying the odds thanks to Lily's groundbreaking treatment protocol, had lived to see his 80th birthday. Though his health remained fragile, requiring regular treatments and close monitoring, he approached each day with a sense of gratitude and purpose that belied his years. It was on a crisp autumn morning, 25 years to the day since that fateful encounter in the alley, that Alexander called a meeting with Lily, Miguel, and Maria. They gathered in his home office, a room that had seen countless discussions and decisions that shaped the course of their intertwined lives. "My dear family," Alexander began, his voice wavering slightly with emotion, "I've asked you here today because I have an important decision to make, and I want your input." He explained that he had been approached by several publishing houses, all eager to tell the story of the Martinez Thornton Clinic and the remarkable journey that led to its creation. "At first I was hesitant," Alexander admitted. "Our story has always felt too personal, too precious to share with the world. But then I started thinking about all the lives that might be touched if we did tell it. How many other people out there might be inspired to reach out, to make a difference in someone's life?" Lily leaned forward, her brow furrowed in thought. "It's a beautiful idea, Alexander, but are you sure you want to open our lives up to that kind of scrutiny? Once the story is out there, we can't take it back." Miguel nodded in agreement. "There's also the privacy of our patients to consider. We'd need to be very careful about how we present certain aspects of the clinic's work." Maria, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "I think we should do it," she said softly. All eyes turned to her in surprise. "For years I've watched families come into the clinic, scared and hopeless. I've seen the light come back into their eyes when they realize they're not alone, that there's hope. Imagine how many more people we could reach with our story." Alexander smiled, warmth spreading through his chest at Maria's words. "Those were my thoughts exactly. But I wanted to be sure you were all comfortable with the idea. This isn't just my story to tell. It belongs to all of us." After much discussion, weighing the potential benefits against the risks, a consensus was reached. They would tell their story but on their own terms. Alexander would work with a ghostwriter, with each family member contributing their perspective. The focus would be not just on their personal journey, but on the broader impact of compassion and the ripple effects of small acts of kindness. Over the next year, the book took shape. Alexander spent hours recounting his experiences, from that first encounter in the alley to the day Lily diagnosed his rare condition. Lily and Miguel shared their perspectives on growing up under Alexander's wing, the challenges they faced, and the moments that shaped their career paths. Maria's chapters, filled with warmth and hard-won wisdom, provided the heart of the narrative. As the publication date approached, Alexander found himself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them all to this point. He thought of the lonely, purpose-starved man he had been before meeting Lily, and marveled at the richness of the life he now led. The book, titled The Alley's Echo: How One Act of Kindness Changed the World, was released to critical acclaim. Its message of hope, compassion, and the profound impact of individual actions resonated with readers around the globe. Letters poured in from people inspired to start their own charitable initiatives, to reach out to those in need in their communities, to look at the world with more empathy and kindness. But for Alexander, the most meaningful response came closer to home. It was a quiet evening at the clinic, long after most of the staff had gone home. He was there for one of his regular checkups, waiting for Lily to return with his latest test results. A soft knock on the door drew his attention. A young woman entered, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. In her arms, she cradled a sleeping toddler. "Mr. Thornton," she said hesitantly, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I just had to meet you to thank you." Alexander gestured for her to sit, his curiosity piqued. "There's no need for thanks, my dear, but please tell me why you feel you owe me gratitude." The woman settled into the chair, adjusting her hold on the sleeping child. "My name is Sophie," she began, "and this is my daughter, Lily." Alexander's breath caught at the name, but he remained silent, allowing Sophie to continue. "2 years ago, I was at the lowest point in my life. I was homeless, pregnant, and terrified. I was considering giving up my baby, convinced I could never provide her with the life she deserved." Sophie's voice wavered, but she pressed on. "Then one day I found a copy of your book in a shelter. I read it cover to cover in one night, and something changed in me. If Lily Martinez could go from scavenging food from dumpsters to becoming a world-renowned doctor, if one act of kindness could spark such incredible change, well, I thought maybe there was hope for me and my baby after all." She looked down at the sleeping child in her arms, a soft smile playing at her lips. "I named her Lily, after Dr. Martinez. Your story gave me the courage to keep her, to fight for a better life for both of us. It wasn't easy, but every time I felt like giving up, I thought of your family's journey." Alexander felt tears welling in his eyes as Sophie continued. "Today, I have a stable job, a small apartment, and my beautiful daughter. And it's all because your story showed me that miracles can happen, that one person's kindness can change everything." As if on cue, the door opened and Lily, the original Lily, walked in, a folder of test results in her hand. She stopped short at the sight of Sophie and the sleeping child. Alexander made the introductions, his voice thick with emotion as he relayed Sophie's story. Lily listened, her eyes shining with unshed tears. When Sophie finished speaking, Lily knelt beside her chair, gently touching the sleeping child's hand. "Sophie," she said softly, "thank you for sharing your story with us. You've given us an incredible gift today." Sophie shook her head, confused. "But I haven't given you anything. I came here to thank you." Lily smiled, glancing at Alexander before turning back to Sophie. "You've shown us that our story, our family's journey, has a life beyond us, that it's touching lives in ways we never could have imagined. There's no greater gift than that." As Alexander watched Lily interact with Sophie and little Lily, he felt a profound sense of completion wash over him. The circle that had begun in that alley so many years ago had expanded far beyond anything he could have dreamed, touching lives across generations. He thought of all the Sophies out there, all the lives changed by the ripple effects of that one impulsive act of kindness. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that his legacy, their legacy, would continue to echo through time, a testament to the transformative power of compassion. As the evening sun cast a warm glow through the clinic windows, Alexander Thornton sat surrounded by the family he had found and the lives they had touched together. In that moment, he knew that his life's journey, with all its unexpected twists and turns, had led him exactly where he was meant to be. The gnawing emptiness that had once driven him to approach a starving child in an alley had been filled to overflowing with purpose, love, and the knowledge that their shared story would continue to inspire acts of kindness for generations to come. And in that knowledge, Alexander found a peace and fulfillment more profound than he had ever dared to hope for.